Some feelings are so specific that normal words just give up. Then one day you hear the right word and think, yeah, that. Sonder, you're waiting at an airport gate, tired enough to start watching people for no real reason. A man is eating a sandwich like he's been awake since yesterday. A woman checks the same message, locks her phone, then checks it again, which is never a peaceful sequence of events. A kid drags a backpack that is clearly winning the fight. None of this is important. You're just bored. Then one ordinary person looks a little too real. Maybe they fix their sleeve. Maybe they stare at the floor. Maybe their face changes for half a second, like they just remembered something they didn't want to remember. And suddenly the airport stops looking like a crowd. It looks like hundreds of private lives passing near each other. That feeling is Sonder. It's the sudden realization that every stranger around you is living a life just as full, private, and complicated as yours. I know. It sounds obvious. Of course, other people have lives, but actually feeling it is different. Each person has a childhood, a kitchen they know in the dark, someone they worry about, a memory they replay. Most of the time, your mind protects you from this. It has to. If you fully imagined every person in a grocery store, you would never make it out with the cereal. So the brain turns most people into background so you can function. Sonder happens when that shortcut slips. A stranger stops being scenery. They become a whole life walking past you with a boarding pass and probably a very specific opinion about airport coffee. It's not exactly sad. It's not exactly beautiful. It's just big. Hiraeth, you go back to an old street, an old school, an old neighborhood, and the first strange thing is that everything is still there. The road is there. The buildings are there. Maybe the same tree is still standing, doing its best. The corner store has a different sign now. A window that used to mean something to you is just a window to everyone else. Nothing dramatic happened. That's almost the problem. If the place were gone, maybe the sadness would make more sense. You could point to the empty lot and say, that's why it hurts. But the place is still standing. It just doesn't hold the same life anymore. A Welsh word people often use for this is Hiraeth. It means a longing for home, but not just a house or a location on a map. It's the ache for a home that time has changed, or for a version of yourself that can't come back. That's the part that is hard to explain. You're not only missing a place, you're missing the way life felt when that place still held you. The early days of a relationship, a summer that seemed endless, a family home after everyone has moved on, the version of you who knew where to put your keys and sat in that room like it was still yours. The place being there almost makes it worse. You didn't lose the building. You lost the life that used to fit inside it. Time just does what time does, which is rude, but consistent. Limerence. You've had maybe 2 normal conversations with someone, and somehow your phone has become a tiny, emotional casino. A fast reply means one thing. A slow reply means another. A random emoji suddenly needs legal interpretation. You tell yourself you're not being weird, and then immediately begin a level of analysis, usually reserved for international treaties. You don't even know them that well, which is the embarrassing part. Somehow, the missing information becomes the whole attraction. This intense, involuntary pull is called limerence. Psychologist Dorothy Tenoff used the term for obsessive romantic preoccupation, especially when you're unsure whether the feeling is returned. What makes limerence different from a simple crush is the uncertainty. Your mind keeps searching for evidence. Do they like me? Did that look mean something? Why did they say ha-ha instead of ha-ha? Serious legal matters, obviously. The person matters, obviously. But the question starts taking over. Do they feel it too? That's the annoying part. Uncertainty gives your brain homework. Every small signal becomes a clue, so your mind keeps refreshing the case, like that will somehow make the truth load faster. Limerence can fade quickly once the uncertainty disappears. If the answer is yes, the mystery relaxes. If the answer is no, the fantasy loses oxygen. It can feel like love. Sometimes it might grow into love, but often, limerence is the mind getting hooked on a maybe. Kenopsia. A school hallway during summer break feels different from a regular empty hallway. The lockers are still there. The lights still hum. A poster is curling at one corner. There's probably a chair somewhere that looks like it was abandoned mid-task. Nothing scary is happening, and somehow that is exactly what feels strange. The eerie feeling is kenopsia. It's the atmosphere of a place that is usually full of life, but is now empty. You can feel it in a closed mall, an office on a Sunday evening, a stadium after the game, or an old social media profile nobody has touched in years. The structure remains, but the life that explains it is gone. Your brain has quiet expectations for places. Schools should have noise, restaurants should have dishes clinking, stadiums should have people shouting about something that probably did not need that much shouting. When those expectations are not met, the absence gets weirdly loud. Kenopsia is not just emptiness. It's empty, but not in a normal way. It still feels like people should be there. Empty places do one strange thing. Rain does almost the opposite. It makes the outside world feel unavailable. And for once, that can feel like relief. Chrysalism. Rain changes the meaning of being indoors. On a normal day, staying inside can feel lazy or boring. But when rain is hitting the windows, the street is wet, and the outside world looks like one giant inconvenience. The room around you starts to feel different, warmer, smaller, safer. You might not even be doing anything impressive. Maybe there's a blanket, a half-finished drink, a light in the corner. That's enough. The standards are low during heavy rain, and honestly, that's part of the charm. That cocooned feeling is Chrysalism. It describes the calm, protected feeling of being indoors during a storm. Not trapped, sheltered. There's a big difference. The feeling works because of contrast. Your brain registers the unpleasant outside. The wind, the water, the general sense that shoes would be a bad idea, and compares it with the room around you. The room feels better because the world outside asks less from you. That's why some people open a window just to hear the rain better. The sound reminds the body that the chaos is out there and you are in here. For once, staying put does not feel like avoidance, it feels like the correct answer. Monachopsis. You're at a party, a work event, or a family gathering, and nothing is obviously wrong. People are talking. Someone is laughing too loudly near the snacks. You're smiling at the right times. You're not being rejected. You're not even having a terrible time. Still, there's this quiet sense that you've been placed in the wrong room by a tired stage manager. Not unwelcome, not hated, just not quite fitted into the room. That feeling is monachopsis, the subtle sense of being out of place. It's different from simple shyness. Shyness often softens once you warm up. Monachopsis can stay even when you're doing everything correctly. You can be liked and still feel misplaced. Your mind keeps checking the room for signs that you fit. When the signals don't quite land, you start monitoring yourself. How am I standing? Was that too much? Why am I suddenly holding this cup like evidence? That's the weird part. Nothing has to go wrong for the room to feel wrong. Monachopsis is not proof that you don't belong anywhere. Sometimes it just means this particular room has not become easy for you. Some rooms never do, which is annoying, but also useful information. Lachesism. Sometimes life gets so repetitive that a small disruption starts to sound weirdly appealing. Not a real disaster, not actual harm, just something big enough to stop the calendar for a minute. A storm day, a canceled meeting, a power outage that makes everyone admit, well, I guess we can't do the thing. There is a very specific relief in that sentence. That strange wish is called Lachesism. It means the desire to be struck by disaster, though in ordinary life it often shows up more as a fantasy of interruption than danger. It can appear when life has become too scheduled, too responsible, too tightly managed. You don't want everything to fall apart. Not really, you just want something outside you to interrupt the machine for a second. The mind sometimes wants relief without guilt. If you cancel, you feel responsible. If life cancels for you, somehow it feels allowed. Not mature, exactly, but very human. The feeling is not noble, it's not dramatic either. It's just tired. Latches, it's just tired. Lachesism is not really about wanting trouble. It's about wanting the world to give you a note excusing you from the day. Altschmerz. There's a special kind of tired that comes from being hurt by the same thing again. Not a new heartbreak, not a fresh problem. The same insecurity, the same family tension, the same bad habit, the same thought that shows up at 1:17 a.m., like it still pays rent in your head. You almost want to say, really, we're doing this one again. That feeling is Altschmerz. It means weariness with the same old problems you've had for years. It's not just sadness, it's boredom with your own pain. That sounds harsh, but it's real. After a while, even suffering can become familiar enough to feel irritating, The reason Altschmerz is so draining is that the mind expects time to create distance. If something hurt 5 years ago, part of you assumes it should feel less powerful now. So when the old pain returns with the same familiar shape, the disappointment becomes part of the pain. You're not shocked by the pain anymore. That's part of what makes it so exhausting. Predictable does not mean painless. It just means you know the route too well. Mauerbauertraurigkeit. Someone kind reaches out. They ask if you want to come over, talk, grab food, take a walk, do something normal and human. They have done nothing wrong. You may even like them. Maybe part of you wants to say yes. Then something in you quietly closes the door. You type a reply, delete it, type something vaguer, say you're busy, leave the message unanswered. You create space, then sit inside that space feeling lonely. This is the part that is hard to defend because technically you chose it. Excellent work, Emotional Security Department. The German word for this is Mauerbauertraurigkeit, which is a small workout just to pronounce. Roughly, it means wall builder sadness. The urge to push people away even when part of you wants connection. What makes it different from healthy alone time is the aftertaste. Real solitude restores you. This kind leaves you more separate than peaceful. Sometimes closeness just feels like a lot, even good closeness, even the kind you asked for 5 minutes ago. So the mind builds a wall to reduce pressure. The problem is that walls are very good at keeping things out, including comfort. You wanted space. You got space. Then you sat in it and realized space is not the same thing as peace. Opia. Opia is what happens when eye contact starts feeling like too much information. Maybe a cashier asks, "How's your day?" and somehow looks like they actually want the real answer. Maybe a teacher asks if you're okay and actually waits. Maybe a friend across the table stops looking away right when you were hoping they would. Nothing dramatic is happening. Your body, for some reason, disagrees. Their gaze feels less like politeness and more like a door opening. Not romantic, not threatening, just too direct. You become aware of your face, your blinking, your mouth, your whole human situation. Eyes carry a lot of social information. Interest, judgment, warmth, confusion. A tiny shift can change the emotional temperature of a conversation. So when eye contact holds, the mind starts doing extra work. Am I being seen? Am I being studied? Do I look normal? Why did I forget what my hands are supposed to do? Opia turns a simple social signal into exposure. For a second, you're not just exchanging words. You're aware that another person is aware of you, and apparently that is a lot for a Tuesday. Rubatosis. Rubatosis is rude. Your heartbeat suddenly gets loud. You're lying still at night, trying to sleep, and there it is, in your chest, in your neck, maybe in your ear against the pillow, which feels unnecessary. Most of the time, your body runs quietly in the background. Heartbeat, breathing, digestion, tiny internal maintenance work. All of it keeps going while you think about groceries or whether your email sounded weird. Then attention turns inward and one signal gets turned up simply because you're listening to it. That is rubatosis. The unsettling feeling of noticing your own heartbeat. For many people, this is brief and harmless. The weirdness is simply noticing the machinery of being alive. Your body did not ask to become a podcast, but here we are. Nothing new is happening. You just noticed the machine while it was running. Exulansis. You try to explain something that mattered to you. Maybe it was a dream that left a strange mood all morning. Maybe it was a childhood memory you still feel in your chest. Maybe it was a joke that hurt more than it should have. You start telling it. You add details. Then too many details. The other person listens politely. They nod in the right places. Maybe they even say, "Oh, wow," which is kind, but not enough. And still, you can feel the whole thing shrinking as it leaves your mouth. You're not just trying to explain what happened. You're trying to explain why it mattered. That is the hard part. So you stop. You say, "Never mind." That feeling is exulansis, the tendency to give up trying to explain an experience because people can't fully understand it. It's not always because the other person is careless. Sometimes the experience depends on too much invisible context. The timing, the mood, the history, the pressure of that day. Language can carry a lot, but not everything. It doesn't have that kind of luggage allowance. Exulansis hurts because the thing still feels real inside you, even after it fails outside you. That's the lonely part. Not that no one listened. That listening was not enough. Anemoia. You see old footage of a city street from the 1970s. The colors are faded. The cars look too square. People wear clothes that seem both terrible and cool. A shop sign flickers. Someone crosses the street with groceries. For no logical reason, part of you wants to be there, which is odd, because you were not there. You have no memory of that world. You did not pay rent there. You did not deal with the bad plumbing, the boring Tuesdays, or whatever people did before they could look up one symptom and ruin their afternoon. Still, something in you misses it. That feeling is an Anemoia, nostalgia for a time you've never known. It happens because imagination can borrow the emotional flavor of the past without living there. Old photos, film grain, music, family stories, and the weird softness of distance create a mood. The mind fills in the rest. Often, what you miss is not the actual past, it's the simplicity your mind has projected onto it. It isn't memory, it just feels close enough to fool you for a second. Liberosis. You don't want to stop caring, you just want caring to stop taking attendance every 5 minutes. The message you sent, the tone someone used, the thing you posted, the thing you didn't post, the version of you that may or may not exist in someone else's head. At some point, all of it gets heavy. Not tragic, just too much to keep picking up. Then, for a moment you imagine caring less. Not in a cold way, not in a move to the woods and speak only to birds way, just in a lighter way. That feeling is Liberosis. The desire to care less about things. It is not, nothing matters. It is more like, can I please care with less intensity? The mind has limited attention, but modern life gives it endless targets. Every comment, update, silence, and small signal asks to be interpreted. No wonder people want to put half of it down. Liberosis is the wish to stop gripping every little thing so tightly. You still care, you just want fewer things pulling on your sleeve. Because your mind was not built to hold the whole internet and 3 unresolved conversations at once. Onism. You're looking at a map, or watching a documentary, or scrolling through someone's photos from a city you may never visit. There's a night market under strings of lights, a quiet apartment in another country, a mountain village at train route, a small kitchen where people are making dinner in a language you'll probably never think in. For a second, you feel the ache of all the lives happening without you. Not because your life is bad, because it is only one. That frustration has a name, Onism. It means the awareness of being stuck in just one body, one place, one life, moving through one timeline while countless other lives remain unavailable to you. You know this is normal. That does not make it feel smaller. The internet has made this feeling louder. Every life you are not living is now a scrollable menu. The artist's studio, the street food stall, the quiet apartment, the version of yourself who chose differently. It is amazing. It is also a lot to sit with while eating leftovers from a container. Onism is not proof that your life is too small. It just means every life has edges. You can be grateful for your life and still feel the tiny grief of all the lives you do not get to try. You don't want every life, not really. You just feel a little sad that you only get this one. Most of these words are not official diagnoses. They're just little labels for feelings we usually leave unnamed. Still, sometimes a word helps. You hear it and think, yeah, that's what I've been trying to explain. And if one of these felt a little too familiar, you probably already know which one. Maybe the strange part was never the feeling itself. Maybe it was having it for years and not knowing what to call it.